Now, usually when a team drafts a quarterback in the first round, they're doing it for one of two reasons. Number one, they're lousy, they got a really high pick, and they've got to start over, and they understand that the best way to start over is to find that franchise quarterback and build around them because frankly, there are two types of teams in the National Football League: those that have a franchise quarterback and those that don't. It's a lot easier to be a playoff team and, in specific, a championship contending team with a franchise quarterback as opposed to being a team that doesn't have one. The other reason you might draft one is, let's say you're a little later in the first round. Maybe you've got some nice pieces in place, but you're not getting enough out of the quarterback position. And again, you're looking for that franchise quarterback that can come in and not so much just be the guy that you build your team around, but can be that guy that is a difference maker, that gives you more, that can take you to that next level. Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars definitely fit more so into the first category. A lousy team that has been that way for a few years, lacking talent all over the place, and in desperate need of a complete and total rebuild and basically starting over. Hence, why they took, to a lot of people's amazement and surprise, my included, Blak Bortles out of Central Florida with the third overall pick in the 2014 NFL Draft. Now, my usual philosophy is this: is that I understand that fans want to see the younger players, they want to see the rookies, and this definitely holds true when it comes to quarterbacks. People want to see the next guy. They want to see the heir apparent. They want to see the future sooner rather than later. It gives them hope. It buys them time. It does all of these things. And the nature of sports in general, it's always, what have you done for me lately? What's next? It's kind of a fickle matter. And with that being understood, I like to see the rookie quarterbacks play whenever possible as well. I believe it's better early rather than later. I believe in starting them as soon as possible as opposed to having them sit and learn, especially in the modern NFL. I think the notion of having a quarterback sit and wait for a year or two is a bit outdated and passe. With that said, though, I do feel that coaches and general managers and organization as a whole have a responsibility when it comes to that rookie quarterback to playing the guy that gives their team the best chance to win that first season. If that's the rookie quarterback, then that's who you need to go with. If it's a veteran that you have in place either from before or that you've added in the offseason, then that's the guy you at least need to start off going with if you truly believe and feel that this guy is going to give you the best chance to win. Because if you don't do that and you go with the rookie when he's either A, ill-prepared, or B, not the best option, you are doing your fan base, your organization, your coaches, your players a great disservice, and you run the risk of losing your locker room. So we get the whole thing of where general manager David Caldwell and head coach Gus Bradley have basically come out and stated that 2014 is going to be a redshirt year for Blak Bortles, that their plan is that he doesn't touch the field at all, that Chad Henne will be the starter from week one and be the starter throughout the entire season. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this because to me, it's a couple of things. One, it's an old way of thinking that isn't necessarily in step with the modern way of the NFL. The notion, again, of having to sit a rookie and that's best for him is not necessarily the case, even at quarterback. Number two, it's basically saying that no matter what a Blak Bortles would do in the preseason or in the offseason and mini camps, training camps, whatever, to prove that he was ready or to prove that he was better than the other option that you have, that he's not going to start. I thought the whole nature of it was competition, and you go with the best guy regardless. And number three, if Chad Henne was so good to begin with, then why did you have to draft Blak Bortles third overall? That's my whole thing. So now we're 2 weeks into the NFL season. Predictably, the Jaguars are 0-2. And Chad Henne has basically been who you would expect Chad Henne to be. He's not terrible, but he's also not very good. The prototype of what you would say is an NFL backup quarterback. Through 2 games, he has 459 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, a fumbled loss, a quarterback rating just a little bit north of 80. But the biggest problem for the Jaguars is a couple of things. That one, Chad Henne lacks elite special arm talent. He lacks that ability to make big time plays with his arm and his feet. You look at the fact that the Jaguars offense in 2 games has scored 27 points. That's not a formula for success in the NFL at any point in time. And over their last 6 quarters, they've only scored 10 points. They've also surrendered 13 sacks through 2 games. And some might point to the offensive line and say how bad that unit is, and they are. But part of that can be that Chad Henne lacks the mobility to extend plays both with his feet in the pocket and with his feet outside, getting yardage with his feet, creating extra time for him to be able to throw. And sometimes he flat out just holds on to the damn ball too long. There's no threat of a big play here. There's no threat of a spark. And when you throw in the fact that through 2 games, Toby Gerhart has 50 yards rushing on the ground, this Jaguars offense looks about as bad as it has been the past few seasons. And I think now it gets to the point where the Jaguars as an organization have to be realistic and say, we took Blak Bortles for a reason. Chad Henne is who Chad Henne is for a reason. At some point in time, we have to start thinking that maybe the way we were thinking wasn't the right way of thinking. Maybe our plan sounded great in theory to us, as outdated as it might have been, but maybe that plan is wrong and we need to call an audible and adjust. Because I find it very hard to believe, again, that you can justify after now 2 weeks in the season that Chad Henne provides you a better chance of winning games in the National Football League than Blak Bortles does. I just don't see it. This whole notion that Blak Bortles isn't ready. Well, number one, if he wasn't ready from Jump Street, why did you draft him number 3 overall? That seems kind of ridiculous that you would basically take a quarterback 3rd overall and pretty much openly admit that he needed a year to redshirt. Well, maybe he wasn't that good and maybe he wasn't worth the number 3 overall pick. Ultimately, you did take him that high, though, so you had to believe in your heart of hearts that maybe he was a guy at some point that could step in and be ready. And looking at Chad Henne, how ready is he? I mean, again, he was your starting quarterback for most of last season anyways. There's a reason you ended up with the 3rd overall pick and in a position to take Blak Bortles like you did. And it was because Chad Henne was your starter the majority of the year. So this whole notion of Bortles not being ready, well, who the hell says Chad Henne is? And at this point in time, why not gamble? Because if you get to the point where the veteran and the rookie are about the same, you got to go with the rookie. Because the rookie, you would assume, as he plays, will grow and improve and become better. And the veteran's going to be who the veteran is. So if that rookie makes any improvements at all, even being the same as that veteran, the rookie's instantly going to get better, which I would have to envision would be the case here. This whole notion also that I've seen about, I see now why the Jaguars wouldn't start Blak Bortles, because he could get hurt, especially behind that terrible offensive line. Injuries can happen anytime in any way. And to sit there and use that as a justification is ridiculous to me, because maybe part of the reason that offensive line looks so bad is because of the fact that there is no threat of any big plays or any real spark or anything special coming out of Chad Henne. Maybe it's also the fact that he holds onto the ball way too damn long and he lacks the ability to extend plays in the pocket and outside of the pocket with his feet, and he's not really a threat to gain some yardage on the ground with his feet. So maybe Blak Bortles would improve some of those areas, as I believe that he would. And sitting there and saying, well, you get hurt behind that offensive line. So what happens 2 or 3 years from now if the Jaguars' offensive line is still doo-doo? Are you still going to sit Blak Bortles and say, well, once they get the offensive line fixed, we're going to bring him in and he's really going to be raring to go and he's going to be safe? No, that's ridiculous. That's an absolutely ridiculous train of thought. And to see some of these so-called NFL experts say this stuff to me is completely and totally ridiculous. And again, Chad Henne, the Jaguars are still going to try and say to their fan base and their players and their coaches and the organization that this guy provides them the best chance to win? After 2 games, they've been outscored 75-27. I find it very hard to believe that you could sit there and legitimately say to anybody's face with any form of real logic based in reality that Henne provides the best chance to win. This whole thing of you came up with this plan and you intend to stick with it, as I referenced earlier. Maybe the plan was stupid. Maybe the plan sucked. Or maybe things change and you have to adjust your plan and you have to catch up with the reality of your current situation. And the reality of the current situation is that sitting quarterbacks as rookies doesn't necessarily equate to long-term success. Sure, you've got guys like Aaron Rodgers that sat as a rookie, and his first 3 years in the league, actually. You got guys like Carson Palmer that didn't play at all as a rookie. But you've got loads of recent examples of guys who played right away and benefited from playing right away. Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, Andy Dalton, Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco, Matthew Stafford. These are all quarterbacks that came in and played right away. Are they scrubs? Some people have different opinions on it, but are they scrubs? Or are they legit NFL starting quarterbacks that were probably better off because of the fact that they did start early, they did start right away, and they didn't have to sit there and sit behind other guys? I also understand that the Jaguars don't want to repeat the Blaine Gabbert mistake, but the first mistake and the most important mistake to understand and the biggest distinction to make here was that the biggest mistake was drafting Blaine Gabbert to begin with. That was by a dumb dick previous general manager, orchestrated also by a head coach that was on his way out, clearly not seeing for whatever damn reason that Blaine Gabbert lacked pocket presence. He was afraid to get hit, and he was a noodle-armed system quarterback at Missouri. So Bortles has several things that Blaine Gabbert never had. So to sit there and say you don't want to repeat the Gabbert mistake, well, maybe it was just the fact that Blaine Gabbert sucked to begin with. That was the issue. The bottom line here is the Jacksonville Jaguars, to me, have no choice. For the sake of their fan base, for the sake of their players, for the sake of the organization as a whole, the plan isn't working. You can no longer sit there after 2 games of being outscored 75-27 with a quarterback that has been sacked 13 times and sit there and say to me with a straight face that Chad Henne gives the Jacksonville Jaguars the best chance to win. I look at what Chad Henne's done and I say, shit, Blak Bortles can do that. Well, if Blak Bortles can do at least that, then he needs to be starting. The fact of the matter is, the best chance for the Jacksonville Jaguars to win football games in 2014 will come with Blak Bortles as their starting quarterback. Hence, to me, every game that they don't start Bortles over Chad Henne, this organization proves just how incompetent and ridiculous they really are. Jacksonville, the time has come. 2 weeks have gone. How much more do you need to see? Henne's not the guy. Hence why you drafted Bortles to fucking begin with. Henne's not going to get it done for you. Start the rookie. See what you got. Maybe you'll get a little bit of a spark. Maybe you'll get some life. And maybe you'll get some threat of big plays that your offense is clearly lacking and that your team so desperately needs.